Well, the Seoul Summit is taking place at a very difficult juncture in the world economy, where a number of analysts have even discussed the possibility of a double dip so soon after the economies, the G20 economies globally and the global economy emerged from the 2008, early 2009 recession. So what can they do to foster growth? Strong growth, sustainable growth, balanced growth is really the underlying issue at this summit. And then there are important pieces of that puzzle that have to do with regulatory reform in the financial sector. A healthy financial sector is banking sector and other financial firms such as insurance companies. It's extremely important to have a healthy financial sector to ensure the long-term growth of the economy. Healthy means not volatile. It means addressing some of the factors that created the crisis that originated in the financial sector or had its core in the financial sector in the first place. And then the third aspect is, how do you ensure that growth is more evenly distributed? Right now there's a hesitation on the part of investors to investing in the smaller economies, the less developed economies, and yet those are often where there is a lot of opportunities. It's just the financing is not there, the infrastructure is not there. So how do you help those economies that were hurt by the crisis, that in a lot of cases constitute or can constitute sound investments, but where there's a lot of hesitation right now in putting capital? So how can you foster growth in countries that are in fact not members of the G20 but are crucial also to their recovery? Seoul, the G20 Summit in Seoul is happening at a very difficult juncture for the world economy again, and in the past few days, just before the summit, countries have started bitterly criticizing each other's policies, notably the recent quantitative easing in the United States that involved essentially printing money to purchase US government securities. Some countries saw that as a disguised attempt, thinly disguised attempt by the United States to try to boost their exports, which is certainly part of their long-term recovery strategy, at the expense of other countries. It certainly has overshadowed the criticism that was expressed earlier on the part of a number of G20 countries about China's currency policy, which artificially depresses not only China's currency, but also that of implicitly that of its neighbors in East Asia, and to want to stimulate their exports. Well, the reality is that not everybody is going to recover by exporting more to their neighbors through keeping their exchange rate artificially low. That's a zero-sum game. It's not going to work, and yet that's the kind of game that countries here in Seoul suspect each other of playing. So they have to move beyond that suspicion. That's going to be very difficult. They have to talk, however, about the long-term structural issues that they pledged to address in Pittsburgh. They have to take a step back, and they have to address those issues of rebalancing their own economies, of addressing regulatory shortcomings in the banking sector that remain to be addressed, and addressing development issues that the Korean hosts have put on the agenda here in Seoul. That's going to be tremendously difficult. We should care about the G20 because it really represents a group that is able, if leadership is exercised within the group, and if the group exercises leadership, to do tremendous things for the global economy, things that the G7 or the G8 that was previously in many quarters considered to be kind of the steering committee for the global economy, are simply not able to accomplish. Indeed, they don't. Not only does the G7, G8 not have the economic power, they're not representative of the balance of economic power that has shifted towards the large emerging economies in the past decade, and frankly, a lot of the countries in the G7, G8 have also lost their ways. They're running tremendously large, historically large deficits in some cases. They're running up large debts in a lot of cases as a result of these accumulated deficits. They've had tremendous regulatory problems that are spread to the rest of the world that have caused the crisis in the G7, G8 countries. There are countries such as Japan that have had difficulty growing for decades, that are caught in what some people are calling a liquidity trap. They can't kickstart their economy. So frankly, the world needs the large emerging economies, and if there is to be a steering committee, if you like, for the global economy, it has to include these large emerging economies on whose health we increasingly depend.